first pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select
Trophy Chase, Arizona.
with the second pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select
Cody Smith, Houston, Texas. The fantasy draft room is now on the clock.
Welcome to the fantasy draft room. I am Chase, and with me, as always, my man Cody. What do we got in store for the people today?
Going to be going through doing our last run at the wide receiver ranks before the NFL draft. Definitely subject to change with this class because, I mean, we're going to go to 10, but well, I really only feel comfortable about 4 of them, maybe, and even those 4, I don't even really know. Like any of these could really shake up, but got to put our stamp on the class. Got to put top 10 out there. We'll see how it comes through after the draft. I expect a good bit of shake up with the draft capital and landing spots, but got to do it here. Give it to you all before we get into it and know that draft capital and landing spot.
And make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, please. It helps us out with the algorithm and helps us out as well. So yes, we will be doing our top 5 of certain positions, but top 10 of this, the wide receivers today. We'll go through the running backs, I believe, next week as well. Yep. So we'll break down each of these positions. We've already done quarterbacks and tight ends. So if you want to check that video out, it will be at the end of this video. You'll be able to check the link there as well. But yeah, let's just dive right into it. I don't think there's really any question about the number 1 wide receiver in this class, and I feel like there's a gap between the rest. It's got to be JSN.
Yeah, I do think it has to be JSN. You know, this was both of our number 1 wide receiver back whenever we did our way too early rankings back before the Senior Bowl a couple months back. And I don't think there's any change. You know, I think there were some people arguing that maybe it could be Jordan Addison, maybe it could be Quentin Johnston. But after we've seen all of the testing go through, I don't think you can say anything else other than it being JSN at the 1.
Yeah, I mean, he did run his 40 at his pro day, ran a 4.48, which everyone thought he was going to be slow. I know it's his pro day, but still 4.48 getting clocked at any point is fast. And then he was the quickest wide receiver in all the agility drills, running a 3.93 in the 20-yard shuttle. He really shut the critics up when it came to that. I know there was, like you said, when we did I think it was back in early January, when we did our way too early rankings, tons of people were really questioning what JSN was because we haven't seen him play, hadn't really seen much from him at all. But at this point in the process, we've heard the NFL scouts even saying that there's only one, or a lot of teams have only one wide receiver as a first round grade, and that is JSN. So makes a lot of sense. Seems like that's going to be the pretty much the gold standard, and I feel pretty comfortable with JSN. So number 2, who do we got here?
Number 2 is going to be Quentin Johnston still at this point. I know there's been a lot of concerns coming out after his pro day about just his athleticism. You know, he's coming in shorter than we wanted, lighter than we thought he probably would be whenever he was getting listed, I think at like 6'4", 225 out of TCU by the school. Definitely coming in a lot smaller than that, coming in actually at 6'2.5", 208. Feels a little bit different. So he's not that, you know, predominant alpha DK Metcalf build that some people were trying to comp him to before we really did see all the testing. But, you know, as much as he's not an athletic freak anymore, you know, still running just right behind in the 40-yard dash, a 4.49, putting that up. And I think he's just got to be the 2 almost by default here. I still have concerns with QJ. He does have the disappearing acts throughout his time in college, especially in the biggest and brightest games sometimes, like that national championship game. But I think just from his production, 60 catches, over 1,000 yards, only 6 touchdowns. I mean, it's not great, but it's what we've got here.
Yeah, you know, and as I mentioned with JSN, there's a big gap between 1 and 2. And I feel like the next few guys that we're going to go over, 2 through 5, these 4 could be changed out. However, like I know in my own personal rankings, I have a different number 2, a little bit riskier, but we'll get to him in a little bit here. But yeah, I have a tough time moving him at this point. I'm going to let the NFL tell me otherwise at this moment. But the disappearing acts are a concern. The overall quickness that he may possess is a concern. So I don't know what to make of this whole group, but right now he seems like he has the most upside if things do work out, and he is what we thought he could be. He could be a true alpha and separate himself as the number 2 wide receiver in this class, or even be in the conversation for wide receiver 1 if he lives up to the hype that we had.
Yeah, and while you said for a lot of these guys, there's only a lot of teams having the one wide receiver with a round 1 grade, I still think we're probably going to have 4 or 5 guys sneak their way into the back of the first, just because it's a position of need in the NFL right now. Running back is replaceable. The quarterbacks are definitely going to go high as far as we're thinking so far. I don't think the mock drafts are lying to us this year like they were last year with the quarterback position, but wide receivers just needed. And especially with the price tag that they're commanding, people are going to want to get those receivers on rookie contracts. And so while I think there's only the round 1 grade, I think Quentin Johnston, there's concerns of him slipping to the second, but I think that might just be a little bit overreactionary to the lower testing numbers than we initially projected.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he's a top 50 pick, like there are fantasy analytics out there that basically say you need to be a top 50 pick, and that kind of solidifies you as a that solidifies your draft capital as a wide receiver. So if he's top 50, I'm okay with it. Does make it a little more concerning if he's in the second, depending on who else goes in the first. So let's jump into our number 3, and a guy that has been really exciting is Zay Flowers. And he's risen up draft boards. I know you actually had him as like the number 1 film guy for you. When you watched his film, you actually loved what you saw in his film. But he is I believe is he a 5th-year senior? 4th year, I think maybe
he's played all 4 years at Boston College.
Yeah, so he played all 4 years. Ran really well. Again, it was he had a 4.42. We've seen all the videos. Very, very Elijah Moore-esque with the quickness and the kind of those change of direction movements that he can do. But he is 5'9", concern. 182 pounds, not too concerning. It's just the overall size. But a lot of teams have said that he reminds of Antonio Brown. Not saying he's going to be Antonio Brown, but it gets people excited to know that kind of comp is there.
Yeah, and even though, he did play all 4 years at Boston College, even in his sophomore year back in 2020, 56 catches for almost 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. He had a pretty good breakout age, even though he did stay all 4 years and decided to go back. Don't know, what the motivations were fully for that, but I don't have too much of a concern that he was a guy who just stayed all 4 years, especially with the times that we're living in with the COVID years and everything like that going through this class right now. Not too much of a concern for me that he's staying all 4 years. And like you said, I did absolutely love the tape. We've done the breakdowns with Ray G over there on Destination Devy as well. If you haven't seen those, go check those out. The offense was just not very good. I think if he was a guy who was playing in a top Power 5 offense, a top 25 FBS overall school with a good line and a good quarterback, I think these numbers could have even been a lot better. So I really do like the ability of Zay Flowers to translate to the next level.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, patreon.com/allgas. Ray G is one of the best in the business at not only breaking down prospects and players, but also checking out the film. He does these film sessions, which are incredible. And when you watch what Zay Flowers does, there were a lot of times that he was wide open, quarterback wasn't looking his direction, or he was wide open and there were 4 defenders in the quarterback's lap. So it's one of those things where his production may have been increased quite a bit or significantly if he was on a different team, but the talent is there. Like you see it, he can line up inside or outside. I know there was some of the snap splits. He played actually outside a lot more than people thought. Everyone sees the size and assumes he's a slot guy, and that's not the case with him. So that's why there's a lot of excitement around Zay Flowers. He can get off of the line with physical cornerbacks. Something that we have seen struggle with our number 4 wide receiver in this class, and that is going to be Jordan Addison, wide receiver out of Southern Cal, Biletnikoff winner when he was with Pitt, transferred to USC, had some injuries, but he still tested very well, got injured during the combine, so we didn't get to see his full array of what he could do, but still ran a 4.49. Fine. I guess that's the best way I can say he's fine. Like he's a wide receiver 2 is like the upside for me.
Yeah, I mean, coming in 5'11", 173, that's pretty light for the frame as well. So the BMI isn't exactly going to be there what we want. But I mean, we've seen Slim Reaper come out without the BMI that people were dogging him for, and he can still produce. I just don't think that Addison is on the same talent level as a Devonta Smith. And so, he was that Biletnikoff winner back in 2021 with Kenny Pickett there while he was over in Pitt. I mean, just insane numbers, 100 catches, 1,600 yards, and 17 touchdowns is absolutely wild. But we didn't see it come to fruition exactly at Southern Cal, maybe due to the injuries or maybe just due to the offense a little bit as well, whatever the case, even though he's playing with Caleb Williams, which you would assume is probably a quarterback upgrade, just never really came together fully for him in terms of stats at Southern Cal. But like you said, I mean, he just kind of feels like another guy. The testing numbers you thought would be a little bit better, coming in a little bit bigger, and without it, he's just going to get lumped into this group of guys where if the draft capital, if somebody really spends up for him in the middle to the top end of the first round, I just don't think that's going to happen yet, but maybe that can sway me a little bit differently. As of right now, he's just one of the guys in the ranks and he falls here at 4.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see where he lands and what kind of draft capital, as you mentioned. The thing is these guys are prospects, right? These are NFL players or rookies coming into the league, and what we need to understand is we are so overwhelmed with the fact that we've had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and some of these guys come into the league and just smash right away. But that is not what the wide receiver position typically has been or is when it comes to fantasy production. Typically, it does take wide receivers a little bit of time to develop. We've seen Smitty have a nice breakout year in his second year, had a good rookie season, nothing, amazing, but it was good. And that's what you're looking for, is you're looking for signs of growth and development. I think that's the big thing with Jordan Addison is he's going to have to learn those releases, getting off of the line of scrimmage with physical corners, bigger corners, because that's how the NFL is. You got a lot of bigger physical corners now. I know not everything's going to be press coverage, but not everyone's going to be playing 10 yards off and just letting you do what you want off the line of scrimmage either. So it will be interesting to see how he grows and develops in time, but he has incredible skill sets when he is open, when he is able to get off of the line and when he does release. Very, very good player. Very good player. So I just think his upside is kind of capped with not only his size, just kind of with what the player looks like. And I just feel like he's, best case scenario, he's going to be like one of those high-end wide receiver 2s, which is good. But that is when things do click. So I don't know if he's ever a number 1 on a team, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely concerns there. And I think we've got the same kind of concerns with the next guy that we're going to highlight here as well. That's going to be Josh Downs being my 2 if it really shook out right in the NFL draft. I don't think that's going to happen, but
I'll even throw 6 in there, like the number 6 here, like just so we can talk about him as well. Because you kind of touched on what Josh Downs can do. Very good, very productive receiver in his entire time at North Carolina. We loved him coming in. Both of us had him in our top 4 in January, and he's there at 5 still, so we still have him up there. But that frame is concerning. Jalen Hyatt coming in at number 6 here on the list. 6 foot, 176, expected to be this insane burner, runs a 4.4 flat, good, fast. It's all in line with everything else. Zay Flowers 4.42, 4.49, 4.48. All these guys are that 4.4 range. I just don't know what to make of him. I know he won the Biletnikoff. I get all of that. Like it's not like it's a fluke, right? Like it's not like you just win the Biletnikoff, but there's just nothing about his game other than his ability to burn that really stands out where I'm like, oh yeah, that dude is an alpha in the NFL. That guy is going to be so successful no matter what team he goes to. All these guys feel like team fit really matters. And I feel like that's something that we need to talk about in a different show or a different episode, maybe on the podcast. But these team fits do matter. How these coaches use these wide receivers matter, because if a team gets him and they're like, yeah, we're just going to have you run those deep post routes and those 9 routes the entire time, and that's what he is in the NFL. Sure, he's going to have some games where he's uber productive, catching 3 balls for 100 yards and a touchdown or 2. But he's also going to have zeros. And that's going to be a very boom bust, scary situation. So it depends on what that capital looks like. It sounds like he's a lot higher in the NFL realm, where maybe he is a top 3 guy. I've heard, or we've seen mock drafts having him as the number 1 wide receiver off of the board, going in like the top 12 picks of the NFL draft. I don't know that happens, but we've seen it. So we've seen it all at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, we really saw the breakout year come this year, though, right? He hadn't really produced anything before, though. In 2021 was his 21 catches for 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then he explodes this year once he goes for 70 and 1,315 touchdowns. I think I just have a little bit of an issue with him, kind of like a lot of people have with Hendon Hooker. It's just this Tennessee offense was incredibly efficient and really built around the college level. We'll see if it translates to the next level. I kind of have him like, hopefully he can be like a Gabe Davis type for a team, but Gabe Davis is coming in at 6'2" or 5'2", 6'2" and 210 compared to Jalen Hyatt's under 6 foot and 180 something pounds. So, or 176 pounds. So I don't know. Just he's a guy, but like really, I don't know if I have him over the next guy coming out of the same school. I could easily see post NFL draft that we have Cedric Tillman, wide receiver 7 for us. I could easily see Cedric Tillman being over Jalen Hyatt by the time we're doing this here in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Ced Tillman comes in, like you said, number 7. He only had 37 catches for 417 yards, but he was injured for, I want to say, 7 of the 12 games this season. I think he played 5
6
games. Played 6. Okay. I
Was
think he may have
injured in
gotten
that
hurt.
6th.
Yeah, that was the catch. So he did get hurt in that 6th game, but still, I mean, I think his first game he had 9 for 162 and a touchdown. Like he had another game with 7 and 68, 9 and 81 and 2 touchdowns. Like he had some very good stat lines in his year, and it seems like he was when I watched the games with them both on the field, it looked to me like Ced Tillman was potentially the better player. And, obviously the injury does come into play here, and obviously Jalen Hyatt took off after the fact, right? Like winning the Blitnikoff statistically was just the better player. But in 2021, Ced Tillman had 1,000 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns, in his junior year. So this guy has produced in the SEC at a very high level. So I'm really interested to see what kind of capital Ced Tillman gets. It's ranged. I mean, we've seen tons of mock drafts having him in the late 2nd, 3rd rounds, and I've seen him go in the 4th and 5th round. So that draft capital is going to be very important, but it seems like he is climbing up draft boards now that we're kind of getting word on his medicals. I really hope for the best for him. Really, really do. Love the talent. He could be a steal in the late 2nd, maybe even early 3rd. That's where he's going in drafts now, but late 2nd of rookie mocks or rookie drafts when that time comes.
Yeah, I mean, he's the profile that we're missing in this class, right? Out of our top 10, he's the only guy over 210 pounds. So him coming in at 6'3", 213, the 40 time is a great slowest one that we have here in the top 10 in a 4.54. But he's got that profile, that bigger wide receiver that we're really missing here. I think that's why you could see him go a little bit earlier in the NFL draft than we're expecting to in a lot of the NFL mocks that I'm currently seeing right now.
Yeah, I'm really excited for him. I hope he does get a good spot where he's going to get opportunities. He has really good ability to track the ball, go up and get it. Obviously, being 6'3", that helps. But yeah, that's the profile we're missing in this class, right? Like he's basically Quentin Johnston. That's what we were hoping QJ would come in at, just a little bit heavier. So we'll see. High hopes. That's kind of my sleeper of the class. We'll just jump into our number 8 guy in Marvin Mims. He really stood out. He's kind of excelled in the offseason. There was a lot of highlights of him midseason there in Oklahoma. Played very, very well the last couple of years, both his sophomore and junior season. And then he comes in 5'11", 183, not the same concerns. He ran a 4.38. He looked overall. I had him, I think, at 5 at one point. I moved him all the way up there. I was drafting him as like a 5th or 6th wide receiver, but I just don't know what to do with this whole range. Again, we talked about 2 through 5 or 6, like same thing with the rest of these guys. Ced Tillman, Marvin Mims, and then the last 2, it's like there's so many names. Like this class is just not that deep. And I think that's the big thing is these are probably just you're hoping wide receiver threes at this point. Like, am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, you talk in terms of just like production for fantasy football.
For fantasy, yeah.
Because I think Marvin Mims could be a very nice wide receiver too, complementary role for an NFL receiving core.
Absolutely.
But again, like, unless he goes to a super high powered offense, what are you really looking for in terms of upside? I do think you're hoping for probably that like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. And so just spending up on the capital for any of these guys, this is why we're probably going to see a lot of the running backs go in our rookie drafts post NFL draft in front of these wide receivers, because unless they just fall into that great landing spot and they all start getting capital, I don't see what's really pushing up the board for me to draft Marvin Mims over Ced Tillman over these next 2 guys. And honestly, from here on out, 9 and 10 is just, it does kind of feel like placeholders at this point. It's just a large conglomerate of guys here. Once I get past Josh Downs, I don't feel good about any wide receiver really for any significant role for fantasy past at this point. It's going to be a lot of what the NFL draft tells us for me, for these guys. I can have the guys that I like, but I don't really like any of them a lot more than I do the other ones.
Yeah, like to be honest with you, like I want to stop the list at the top 8. Like I don't even want to go into number 9 and number 10, because it's like I feel like we put names here, not only put names here, but we're ranking them because of how they were viewed previously, and they have slipped quite a bit. So like we'll just jump in. Might as well just bring up Rasheed Rice at this point. He's number 9 on the list, but there's been some major questions about him off the field. There's a lot of stuff going on with Rasheed Rice, where NFL teams don't even have them on their board, which is a huge concern. So we'll see what ends up happening with that draft capital. Ran a 4.51. He's athletic. He has a good size, 6 foot, 204. I liked him. I liked him a lot. Like in January, I had him up in my top 5. I hope the best for him, but it seems like he's going to be a 3rd, 4th round wide receiver. And I have no need to take that kind of wide receiver in my rookie drafts unless it's the 3rd round. Like, and even then, there's running backs,
4th, right?
Yeah, like I'm okay, because it's like I'll pass on that. I'll take other tight ends. I'll take other positions. So I'm not going to probably own a lot of Rasheed Rice unless he gets some draft capital bump come that NFL draft day. So
yeah, I mean, what he does have is good production. I mean, almost 100 catches, 1,400 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He also had a good sophomore year, but he's doing it at SMU in the American Conference. Like, what are you really putting in? What stock are you really putting into that production profile? SMU is a high-powered offense as well, so I don't even believe his target shares were all that great, or yardage shares, dominator ratings were anything overly special. Combine that with, you touched on some of the potential off-the-field concerns that are lingering out there. The uninspiring senior day or Senior Bowl that we saw from the week there, where we thought he was going to come in and smash, just really didn't do anything special, hasn't really performed exceptionally at any point throughout this pre-draft process. And so, like you said, you at one point had him all the way up at 5, but he's just continued to slip and fall down the board. And we'll see if an NFL team takes the shot on him. But right now, coming in as our wide receiver 9.
And the biggest faller from, we'll just say, of August of last year. I mean, even this time last year, in April of last year, this guy was arguably wide receiver 1 in the class, arguably. Yep. And we begrudgingly put him here. I think we put him here for name value alone, but it's Keyshawn Butte or Booty. And Debbie Darling, freshman breakout with 45 catches, 735 his freshman year, had some monster performances that year as well. Sophomore season, injury concern, those types of things. He had, 38 catches for 509. And then this past season, lack of motivation, lack of involvement, it seemed like, with the team. 48 catches, 538 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was just an abysmal year, and he's followed it up with nothing but, I'd say, mediocre performances at best at the combine, pro day, everything. Like it just hasn't been good for Keyshawn.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were just hanging on to a lot of that freshman year production. You know, whenever we see that guy, it's kind of like the rookies that we see in the NFL. Whenever they have their breakout year as a rookie in the NFL, we're like, okay, well, now he's only going to get 30% better the next 2 years, and he's going to elevate himself up into that top 5 wide receiver in the league. It didn't happen for Keyshawn. I mean, he did deal with the injuries in his sophomore year, but he got severely outplayed by Malik Neighbors last year in this LSU offense, and the uninspiring performances throughout everything. Some of the concerns off the field, I'm not leaning into as much, just because he had the choice of not coming back and playing for that team, and he probably wouldn't have been like, if he didn't play this last year, I think he would have a much higher draft stock and profile right now than if if he took like a, not to say a JSN route, but what was it? The Jamar Chase route, where he just didn't play. I think he would probably easily be a top 3 or 4 wide receiver if he actually had taken that route, but just coming back with an uninspiring performance. I'm glad he did come back and play, but man, like you said, begrudgingly putting him in here. I just can't argue for any of the other guys to be put in over him at the 10th wide receiver, just because of the name value and the cachet that he will still hold amongst some of the fantasy community at this point.
I think the big question with Booty is, if he, like, what is it going to take? Because like, he's number 10 right now. Like, what is it going to take for you to like put him at just behind Jalen Hyatt, top 7, put him above Cedric Tillman, like second round capital?
It's going to take almost that top 50 capital for me.
Yeah,
it's and a good landing spot. Like, if he's if he's in the second round and a good landing spot, then he goes into that range with like possibly Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman for me.
And I feel like if he goes in the 4th round or 5th round, like we've seen too, gone, like off the board. Do not care. I know he ran a 4.5, which is okay. He looked up, had the 4.3 short shuttle, so good types of good agility, I guess. Like, just good, nothing great. I just so much hype and belief. I think it comes down to know your league. Like, that's when it comes to Booty. If people still believe in him, sure, take him in the 3rd round of your rookie drafts, but that draft capital is going to matter, and hopefully you can sell him at some point. Maybe he has a good game. Maybe he does that George Pickens catch in spring training. Geez, in the preseason, and you can sell him for some sort of profit. But most likely, I'm going to have a 0% share of Keyshawn.
Yeah, because there will probably be the one person in the league that will still draft him in the 2nd, early 3rd round. And if he's 4th round, I truthfully think he's probably going to be like a 4th, 5th, 6th round wide receiver. And he's almost undraftable to me to like the mid 4th round, if that's the case.
We still see people in mocks taking him in the early 2nd of mocks. And it's like, have you not seen any news on him? Like, is it just the belief and the hype and the hope? So, but again, draft capital may change things for people. So I'm really interested to jump into some of those mocks post NFL draft. But yeah, I mean, that wraps up the top 10. There are other names that we have that we heavily considered putting at 9 and 10. A.T. Perry's a big one that you've been in on. Trey Palmer's been getting a lot of buzz. That's been my guy from Nebraska. I don't know. He's to me, I'm telling you, he seems like a trap. But hey, rumors of him going day 2. That's all it's going to take, and he's going to go up, jump up the list.
Yeah, a couple other ones for me, maybe like a Tyler Scott. There's still people projecting him up in the 2nd round if he gets a good landing spot, especially in like best ball, because he's kind of that deep threat guy. Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State had a pretty good production profile, not as good market share wise, but he still put up some pretty good numbers, coming in a little bit lower size than what we wanted as well for him as a big body wide receiver. But yeah, this range, like you said, I wish we could have ended this list at about like 7 or 8, because you're throwing darts at the board here. And truthfully, in rookie drafts, we're probably not going to have much shares of these guys, because they're going to be taken above the running backs that we're probably going to be taking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We will get into the running back class next week, so we'll make sure we post that video for everybody. Again, make sure you please like and subscribe. Anything else you want to touch on with these wide receivers? I feel gross at this point.
Nope. Hopefully they get some good capital, because they desperately need it to complete their profiles at this point.
For all of you that are mad that Charlie Jones didn't make the list, or name any other dart throw wide receiver,
Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson, Elijah Higgins. Michael Wilson could be one. Like, we'll see what that draft capital looks like for some of these guys, but it's not going to change anything where these guys are going to vault themselves into, second round rookie pick consideration, most likely. But we'll see. So looking forward to the NFL draft. Again, please like, subscribe, check it out. And thank you so much for joining us here in the Fantasy Draft Room.